What's up guys, my name is Sanjay and welcome to the Gentleman's Plate. Just want to take a quick moment to tell you baby vegans how lucky you have it these days. When I first became vegan about 16 years ago, my options for vegan holiday roasts were pretty slim. Back in the dark ages of veganism, our only hope was a Tofurky roast. But now, the options are endless. So stick around while I try all these roasts and loafs and let you know which one is worth your money. I'll be judging these mock meats on 4 basic categories: presentation, texture, stuffing and gravy, and finally, overall flavor. So without further ado, let's get clucking. I mean, cooking. It's funny how I did that, right? Like, mixed up the two. Yeah. Alright, so first up we have Gardein's lightly breaded turkey cutlets. They're kind of like chicken tenders or nuggets, but bigger, flatter, more of a cutlet shape. It still does have the gravy. We still do have the gravy that comes with it. They cook really fast, so if you're in like a rush and you don't want to use the oven, like I use the air fryer to make these, you know, you can just pop them in an air fryer, pop them in a toaster oven, have them done in like 12 minutes. So we're just gonna cut into one of these now. Okay, so it's super crispy. All right, cheers. Happy Thanksgiving. That's a really crispy breading. Cooking in the air fryer was definitely the best bet because both sides are nice and crispy. It is a little dry, so I'm gonna try it with some of the gravy. Get some of that gravy on here. Give it a try now. Oh wow. The gravy is amazing. Honestly, this gravy reminds me of like the childhood gravy I had growing up. It's very traditional. Basically tastes like Thanksgiving in liquid form, which is great on the cutlet. Honestly, they could sell this. If they sell tubs of this, I would buy this. This is really good. All right, so let's talk about the turkey cutlet here. Presentation-wise, I would definitely give this 8 out of 10 because it's perfectly crisp. It's really light. Maybe if there was a stuffing involved, it'd look more presentable on your Thanksgiving table. Now, as far as texture, it's got a nice chewiness. I like that the meat was kind of flaky like a real turkey or chicken. So I definitely give it like a 9 out of 10 for texture. The gravy gets a 10 out of 10. And finally for overall taste, this is where this product lost me. It definitely was missing that poultry turkey flavor. It was just kind of a bland puck. If it weren't for the gravy, this would be a lost cause. Without the gravy, this is a 5 out of 10 in overall taste. Alright guys, so next up we have Gardein's Savory Stuffed Turkey. It's just basically like a little mini loaf. Single serve, super convenient to just pop into the air fryer or a toaster oven. Each packet comes with 2 of these little mini loaves and also 2 packs of gravy. It's actually the same gravy that came with the cutlets. I'm gonna go ahead and cut into it. It's very crispy, I don't know if you can hear it. Alright, so there you've got the crispy outside, the warm, delicious stuffing on the inside here. Let's give it a go. Super crispy outside, nice tender juicy turkey part on the outer edge. Stuffing is not too salty, not overly spiced. It just very well complements the breading. Now I air fried this at about 400 degrees for about 10 minutes. And it came out perfectly warm. Let's go ahead and try it with the gravy. That delicate stuffing, that velvety gravy is just a great combination. For presentation, this for sure gets a 10 out of 10. If you're having a dinner party and you're gonna be serving Thanksgiving to friends and family, if you give each person their own mini loaf, it looks really nice. Even like a platter of these would look really, really cool. As far as texture was definitely a winner because you just had the perfect amount of crunch, the perfect amount of chew with the turkey, and the perfect amount of mushiness from the stuffing. For texture, this is also a 10 out of 10. And overall flavor, it's just perfectly balanced, this one. Flavor, I'd have to say this is also a 10 out of 10. This is pretty much a perfect holiday roast. Alright gang, next up we have the premier Gardein holiday roast. So this one is called the Traditional Holiday Feast. It says it serves 8 people. You know, I always see dads in like traditional holiday movies cut the roast with like a fork thingy and big knife. So let's give it a try. We're just gonna dive right in, okay? So let's just go with this piece here. Try it without the gravy first. Let's try it with a little more gravy this time. Is this gravy different from the one that came with the cutlets and the mini roast? Let's see. I don't know. It's like, it tastes a little bit richer, just a little bit richer. Alright, so compared to the last 3 Gardein products, the turkey on the outside is much thicker and more moist. The stuffing on the inside is nice and solid. It's not too mushy. In fact, everything about this holiday roast is definitely more premium. Presentation-wise, this definitely gets a 10 out of 10. It's a great centerpiece, very generous with the turkey. It looks very inviting. It slices well. As far as like accessories, in this case the gravy. The gravy was very tasty. Again, this is, if Gardein sells gravy, I'm gonna buy it for sure, but this gravy seemed to taste better than the last 2 gravies that we had. So the gravy gets a 10 out of 10 for me as well. Now, when it comes to texture, this turkey is very moist, very thick. It has a nice mouthfeel. So this turkey also gets a 10 out of 10. And finally, overall flavor, all together with the stuffing and the gravy and the crust being all flavored, I feel like there's multiple layers of flavor in this dish. So this also gets a definite 10 out of 10 when it comes to overall flavor. Next up we have Trader Joe's breaded turkey-less stuffed roast with gravy. Now this roast does come with its own gravy, which I have here in a bowl. But everyone on the internet's been really excited about this organic, savory, vegan gravy that Trader Joe's also sells, and I want to compare it to the gravy that came with the roast. Super crispy. Okay, well that's just all stuffing right there. Let's try one more slice. What is happening? Look at this. This is so sad. The first few slices were basically sacrificed to the stuffing gods. Let's see if we can get one really nice picture-perfect slice. So the first thing we should try, I guess, is the stuffing, because it pretty much fell right out from the front. The stuffing is super sour. The cranberries in here are quite large. They're quite moist, which explains why the stuffing kind of fell apart. Now we're gonna try out the 2 gravies, okay? So here we have the gravy that came with the roast, right on top there. And here comes the gravy that is sold separately. This is the gravy that has like a fan following right now. People are really excited about this gravy. Okay, let's go ahead and try just the turkey without any gravy. Let's go ahead and try the gravy that came with the roast. Get some stuffing. That's, what am I tasting? Hold on. It has a very weird chemically alcohol aftertaste. We're gonna say no to that gravy. That's not gonna work for us. So then let's try the second gravy. This is the gravy, the standalone gravy. Down the hatch. Standalone gravy was palatable, was better, but still missed the mark. I'm tasting a lot of savory mushroom flavor, but I'm not getting the herbs and spices that kind of scream the holidays. There's no like Thanksgiving flavor to it. And because the Trader Joe's loaf is pretty dry and is lacking some flavor, the gravy is very key to the experience. Presentation wise, I did like the really nice, crispy breading. Let's give it a 9 out of 10. It lost a point because when we sliced into it, the first few slices were pretty much useless. As for the texture, I do appreciate how thick the meaty portion is, but it was very dry and very dense. I also think the very wet stuffing with all those huge cranberries kind of gave the texture of the whole dish a really weird mishmash. Texture-wise, I'm gonna give this a 6 out of 10. Now the accessories, the stuffing and the gravy were both horrible. I would never eat this gravy again. If you buy this roast, throw the gravy away. For gravy, for stuffing, this gets a 0. Overall flavor, I would give this a 4. Next up, here we have Field Roast Hazelnut Cranberry Roast in Croute. Didn't come with gravy, but I guess it's okay because it has this like pastry dough topping on top. Okay. First bite. Oh, that's kind of nice. This is kind of like a croissant texture. Wow. Wow. For the sake of curiosity, I'm gonna try the bready end first. There's a little bit of sausage in this, so let's try it. It's buttery, it's moist, it's perfectly cooked. Let's get into the meat of this situation here. So this is kind of the perfect bite. We've got a little of the meat, we got a little of the stuffing, we got a nice piece of the bread. Cheers. The flavor of the roast is just really good. In the roast itself, in the meat itself, you do see a lot of spices and herbs. It's kind of hard to tell where the roast ends and where the stuffing begins, but I'm gonna try my best. I thought the candied ginger would be kind of weird, but it works. I'm loving this one. I'm pleasantly surprised because I'm not a fan of ginger, and I also thought it'd be too dry because there's no gravy in this one. But I think it's the moistness of the meat itself and the really perfect stuffing makes it okay. When it comes to presentation, I don't think you can get any more fancy than this. I think it's super cool to see that really flaky, beautiful puff pastry on the outside. And when you cut into it, seeing the layers of the pastry and the really beautiful like graining in the meat, it makes for a great slice. I think for presentation, we have to give it a 10 out of 10. Now, when it comes to texture, I really love how compact and dense this meat is. Personally, I like when the turkey type of roasts are kind of shreddable and airy, but when we're looking at this kind of like a sausagey roast, you want something dense, you want something full of bite, and I think as far as texture, this gets a 9 out of 10. When we're looking at accoutrements, I think I can't get past the novelty of how cool this pastry is. And then also the stuffing inside, there's not much of it, but the stuffing that I did get with the wild rice and the sausage was really, really good. So altogether, this one also gets a 10 out of 10. Now, when it comes to overall flavor, I really enjoy all of the spices and herbs. So for overall flavor, it's easily a 10 out of 10. All right, guys, so here we have our second field roast loaf. This is field roast celebration roast, and it comes with traditional bread stuffing and mushroom gravy. What I found interesting about this roast is that it did come with a gravy, however it came with a powdered gravy. I actually have the gravy here that I made in the microwave, but let's go ahead and cut into this bad boy. Of course, this is the mushroom gravy that I actually made in the microwave. That's good. I get a lot of garlic. I'm trying to cut out what I think is gonna be the stuffing. It's kind of hard to tell. I don't know if it's trying to be turkey, but it's definitely some kind of white meat as opposed to the dark meat of the other roast there. I do prefer the flavor of the meat in the celebration roast than in the puff pastry one. Let's give this mushroom gravy a try. I'm not gonna get too gravy happy because it's a little chunky and the smell is kind of throwing me off. You know, let's not ruin a good thing. Let's see what the gravy sitch is over here first before we get on the gravy train. The gravy could have been better. It does add a nice touch of moisture. You know, you definitely need something saucy when you're eating this kind of a dry white meat. When it comes to presentation, I think it's really cool that there were all these like striations on top. The color is really impressive. This probably gets a solid 10 out of 10. When it comes to accoutrements, the gravy, a little lackluster. Not the worst gravy. It definitely needed more flavor, maybe some more herbs. It was kind of one note. That's okay because the loaf itself was very tasty. It's almost like there's a very little amount of stuffing, so it's hard to tell, or the stuffing and the meat just kind of all amalgamated into one loaf. From what little soft mushy bit I did get, it was very tasty. So when it comes to the add-ons, I think that this loaf was a little lacking and I would give it a 6 out of 10. Now texture, I think the texture is spot on. I just know that it's some kind of white meat that is really chewy, got a great mouthfeel. I would give it a 9 out of 10. Finally, when it comes to overall flavor, I think this is where this dish shines. For overall flavor, I have to give this one like an 11 out of 10. It far exceeded the mark. This is one of my favorite tasting ones. All right, next up we have the Quorn holiday roast. I honestly read the directions like 5 times because I was really stressed out about cooking this in the plastic. Hoping this was oven safe plastic. I mean, it didn't melt to the meat, which is good. Alright, so this is another generic white meat loaf. I don't know if it's supposed to be turkey, if it's supposed to be chicken, if it's supposed to be pork. It doesn't really have any kind of breading, stuffing, and it definitely didn't come with the gravy. So we're just gonna try it dry as it's intended. Now I remember why I don't like Quorn. I feel like all Quorn products have this signature sourness. I can't put my finger on it. It definitely doesn't taste like poultry, but there's like a sourness to it that I just don't like. It's juicy. I'll give it that. I think cooking it in the plastic wrap, as scary as it was a smart thing to do because it kept the meat juicy, which is kind of like reminds me of like a real, like this is kind of like real turkey breast right now. Okay, so this wasn't the worst of all the loaves. For presentation, even though it looked a little funky when it was coming out of the wrapper, I think it's really cool to have them cut into these medallions. If you're having a small dinner between 2 people and you slice this up and put this on a little platter with a little bit of kale and some roasted vegetables, I think it would be a really good centerpiece. So I would give this like an 8 out of 10 when it comes to presentation. Texture, I think the texture is spot on. I think the texture far exceeds any of the roasts we've had today. So for texture, I'm gonna give this a whopping 11 out of 10. It gets extra points for having that sponginess and the moisture that really mimics real poultry. As far as the accompaniments, there is no gravy, there is no stuffing, there's nothing special when it comes in the box. It's gonna be a 0, but I'm gonna give it an NA. It doesn't apply, but that's okay, because some people don't want all that. Some people just want like a source of protein on the table. And finally, when it comes to overall taste, it's not horrible. Once I can get over that sour element in this meat, I think it's very neutral tasting otherwise, which is why it's really good with like side dishes or if you have a really nice gravy. So for overall flavor, I'm gonna have to give it a 7.5 out of 10. There's definitely room for improvement, but some people like it. And just like that, guys, we are finally here. We are gonna actually end this video with the one Tofurky that started it all. This is the original, this is the OG, this is the Big Daddy. And this one is the one we saved for last. Now, I actually bought the small box, which is basically just a roast. They do sell a bigger, like family style kit, and that one does come with gravy. That one is also like twice the price. And because I was gonna have so many roasts around, I didn't wanna spend extra money on like the dessert and the gravy that came with it. Right off the bat, I'm gonna be able to tell you that the accompaniments that come with this, when you get the family kit accompaniments, this one usually gets a 10 out of 10. So let's go ahead and cut into this bad boy now. It's been a couple of years since I've had this roast, so I'm really excited to try it again. We'll first dig right into the meaty part of this. Let's see. There's that familiar turkey flavor. Let's get into the stuffing. I think the stuffing is better than I remembered it. It's a nice wild rice stuffing, yeah. I like how salty it is. Like the meat itself is pretty salty, which I enjoy, but not a lot of people will. Okay, so let's size up the original Tofurky. I think when it comes to presentation, it's a fat little pudgy loaf. It's not that pretty to look at. There's not a lot going on outside, but when you do slice it, it is nice to see the little bits of wild rice and the wild rice stuffing. Let's be fair and give it a 7. It's not the prettiest roast at the party. Texture, that bouncy, chewy, dense meat of the turkey is just really satisfying. When you contrast it to mashed potatoes and gravy and sweet potatoes and all the other soft, mushy things on your plate, it's a really nice contrast to have this kind of a hard, dense protein on your plate. For texture, I'm definitely gonna give it a 9 out of 10. This is very much seitan 1.0. And finally, overall flavor, the inside meat is really salty, which I like, and the stuffing is better than what I remembered. So for overall flavor, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. So there you have it, folks. We went through highs and the lows, and we've tried all these different holiday roasts together. And I have to say, there are some clear winners and maybe a few losers as well. Overall, my top 3 roasts have to be, I really enjoyed the Phil Roast Celebration Roast. Really great flavor. It had everything I wanted. It just was missing a little something when it came to the gravy and the stuffing. I think the runner-up definitely has to be the Phil Roast and Croute. The candied ginger stuffing was a real surprise. I really enjoyed that. And of course, the flaky pastry, I couldn't get over how delicious it was. And of course, there's the #1 roast that I have to definitely give to Gardein. I think Gardein's holiday roast had it all. It had a perfectly crispy breaded outside. The turkey meat itself had the best mouthfeel. Really was the closest one when it came to like the turkey texture. I think the few roasts that I would stay away from is definitely the Quorn holiday roast. And I can't believe for the past couple of years, I've actually been buying the Trader Joe's roast when I think that might be the worst one. Alright guys, if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. So cheers to everyone who's going out there and buying these roasts and making a change on their table. Happy Thanksgiving, and thanks for watching.